Tim Barron. I'm an artist, illustrator, skateboarder. I do a lot of work within the skateboarding and toy industry. I've done some stuff in the music industry as well. Done artwork for Tony Hawk. I've done artwork for the Property Brothers, AC/DC, bunch of everybody in between. So, yeah.
So, what got you into art to begin with? Like, how did your journey begin?
Yeah, so I was drawing actually from probably as soon as I could pick up a pen or pencil. My mom saved a couple drawings from when I was maybe like three and a half. Like I was little, and there's just like these little round faces, but I had like the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and I think I threw some appendages on them too. But I still got them. It was really cool. I pulled them out a month or two ago and was looking at them. So like as soon as I could uh, pick up pen and paper, I was making stuff. And then I watched a lot of. I was an '80s kid, so I watched a lot of cartoons. And so there was like superhero shows, like superhero cartoons, and I was just so into like Superman, Spider-Man, like all those cartoons that were on that. I would watch those religiously every morning, every afternoon. And then just also when I'd go to the grocery store with my mom, I would always look at the comic book spinner rack. And so I would just stand there and I'd literally look at every single comic book that was on the rack. So all those things, and then toys. I was always obsessed with toys. Had a super happy childhood, and my parents would always get me like Transformers and He-Man and GoBots and just any GI Joe, Star Wars, all of that stuff. I was a little bit spoiled. I had an amazing toy collection. I really had a really happy childhood, and so grateful for that. And so all those things together got the ball rolling, if you will.
That's awesome. Is that kind of what inspired you to do the toy part of what you do? Because it kind of lets other kids play with the
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think that the toy stuff really stuck with me because um, it was just such a, I don't know, like I said, I had a great childhood, and I always remembered, like, it wasn't just the toys are awesome, but the packaging that they came in,
toy.
oh my gosh, like the card art for the old GI Joe figures, the artwork on the Transformer boxes, like all that stuff just bombarding me with this amazing imagery. It just really stuck with me, and it made me, it just it never left me. Basically, like it never left me, and I would always love that and always had a connection with that. So the next logical step to all that was skateboarding and introduction to skateboard art and skateboard culture. Thrasher magazine. It's like that took me like comic books, toys. It took me to like junior high, and then I discovered skateboarding, and then I was just like, because I was not good at sports. Like I tried, was not good at them. I didn't even like them. But then I found skateboarding, and it was like it gave me something that like really helped forge my identity, and also just it was like the next chapter in my creative life. So
Yeah.
yeah.
If with Do you think if you would have never found skateboarding that your art would be where it's at today?
No, I don't even know where. That's a really good question. That's like that's like a alternate universe, Tim. I'd have to explore that idea. Yeah, because it was, yeah, it probably, I'm guessing it would have stuck with comic book, like the comic book art. I probably would have been straight up comics, and probably wouldn't have branched me out into that wider world of like almost like real life application of art on something that you're using as a tool, like a skateboard.
Yeah.
What's so awesome about skateboard art is that it's the marriage of really cool art with a really cool like lifestyle thing. And the irony there is that if you're good at it, like the graphics going to get destroyed on the skateboard that you're riding.
Sure.
So it's really weird, but it's also like that's like the greatest honor. If somebody skates a board that my art is on, like the more demolished it is, well done. So it's an interesting, I don't know, it's an interesting idea to explore. But yeah, I would have not, I wouldn't have been the same artist. I think that I was so firmly fixed in like Star Wars and all that area of Star Wars comic books, but it wouldn't have taken me into like the skate scene where there's a certain aesthetic with artists like Pusshead and Jim Phillips and like the punk rock culture with the music and you know bands like the Misfits, where I discovered for the first time in Thrasher magazine, or even Metallica. Like, how would I have discovered those bands? And if I would I like them? Would I have liked it because like that music was so connected to skate culture, like in skate videos and stuff like that, that there's just this connection, this seamlessness between skateboarding, art, music, and friendships. It was a really cool thing, very positive, and it taught me skateboarding taught me so many life lessons that I don't know where I'd be without skateboarding. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love it. I think also it's interesting to think about how someone that doesn't skateboard
Mhm.
think about their art on the back of the skateboard. Like in contrast, obviously you are like, no, that's awesome. I love it's getting scratched up because I know that means they're a badass skateboarder. But
Yeah.
it would be interesting, I guess, to find like someone that was like my art.
Well, what's also cool is that there is this sort of like collectors market in skateboarding too, and it's like a lot of times it's like slightly older guys like myself who will buy a board or boards and hang them on their, like you can see I've got
Yeah,
boards behind me, but a lot of people will do that. Sometimes if it's a graphic that they grew up skating, they'll buy that and hang that. Or other times, I'll be vending at a convention or something like that, and somebody will buy a skateboard deck that I did illustration for, and they'll be like, this is going on my wall in my man cave or something like that. So, or they'll buy it as a gift and have me sign it or personalize it or whatnot. So yeah.
I had a really cool art teacher in high school that also designed skateboards, and I remember like when they would get broken, they were still like something else to me.
Yeah.
Now they're just a new like piece of art for you to create something else out of. So that's kind
Yeah, that's really cool that you say that, because there's here in Fort Wayne, they do I think it's called Art in the Skate Park every spring. And it's really cool. That they do is they throughout the year, they collect used skate decks that could be beaten to smithereens or whatnot, and then they just hand them out to people to make art on them, whether you cut it up or you just sand everything down, and then you bring it back, and then they're auctioned off, and the money goes to the skate park. So it's such a cool something about that entire culture, that entire DIY mentality is really, really cool. Really cool.
I think that in the punk rock community a lot you find that like almost everyone is an artist, has some kind of art that they make, like
Yeah.
by making tiny little scenes in bottles. Like I
Yeah.
there's like weird stuff that we all kind of do. So that's super.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, I don't know. Like, I think skateboarding, like, trains you to think differently. Like,
Sure.
just automatically, like, you look at a landscape around you, and some people will say, oh, that's a handrail to walk down the stairs so I can't fall. And then, a skateboarder is like, no, that's to do a backside nose blunt slide in broad daylight, and then get kicked out by the cop. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just train oh, that's a set of 6 stairs. I'm going to ollie those. It just no, I'm going to grind on that. It just teaches you, and like you said, with the music and the punk rock scene, it's just it's creativity just flows naturally through all those subcultures.
Sure.
Self expression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone's just kind of looking for that way because even if you look at skateboarding in the like the beautiful way that you can observe it, like it is like its own art, it's its own story, it's its own like thing. Even when you fail, like even when you fall, it's like
Oh yeah, that's part of the journey. That's 99% of the journey, is how many times you fall and get hurt before you finally land it and then right off. And yeah, it's like it skateboarding teaches you, tutors you, like that, it just shows you how to fail. And like you want to know how to fail right, you want to know how to fall right. And there's so many practical life applications of that, in real life. And
Well, I know there
mm,
was a time too, I think that like as a subculture, it became so popular that it really wasn't like so sub anymore. You know, it was kind of
yeah,
like Tony Hawk kind of brought, obviously, you know
yeah.
that to like the mainstream, and there were video games and all the things happening.
Hmm. I think you're right. I think that the pro skater video games really put it
Yeah,
kind of took skateboarding out of this sort of like I don't know what you call it, like an anti-establishment mentality, and put it more in the and like things like X Games also, which all good. I don't. That's fine. Uh, but yeah, it doesn't quite have in some instances doesn't quite. There's still attitude there. There's still an ethos. But yeah, it was different growing up in the '90s. Skateboarding was different growing up in the '80s and '90s than it is now, because it's just everybody knows who Tony Hawk is. Everybody's played Tony Hawk Pro Skater. People go, people dig the X Games. People watch, like Bam Margera and other guys like that have had TV shows. It's really brought in the Olympics. So all good. I love skateboarding, so you know, I love to see where it can go.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's cool like when you get to share that, but there's always that like little part of you that's like, I just don't think they get it the way that. So it's the connect. You're always like looking for the connect. I feel like in all those. So
yeah. I think that there's still sort of like secret handshakes with skaters. You know what I'm saying? There's still the world might know a bit more about skateboarding per se, but I think between skateboarders, like I remember I walked into where was it? I walked into I was a doctor's office or something, but I was wearing a Thrasher shirt, and the dude that greeted me, it was like an immediate like secret handshake. He was like, "Oh, hey, love that shirt," and I was like, "Oh, did you skate?" And he's like, "Well, I used to," and they just got this conversation going, and yes, and that's one thing that I've noticed is that skateboarding, like people, like once people, you know, when skateboarding was a part of their lives, like it doesn't really leave them later in life. And then oftentimes, I've had people who have gotten into trouble with like drugs or drinking problems or whatnot, and talking to them, they always think about skateboarding and what a positive, like, oh, I just wish I could go back, or I should start skating again, or it's just this. It was this thing that stabilized us all and kept us all sane. So it's just I can't say enough good things about the positive impact that skating and skateboard culture had on me growing up, and even now. I started skating again in my late 30s, and that changed my life totally. Like it was like this part of me that had been dead and buried, like came back to life, and it helped me move forward in my career as an artist and get out of a day job that was not ideal for me, and that you know it was tapping back into that helped me move forward as an artist.
yeah, that's I think that's kind of part of like rediscovering the part of you from when you were younger. I don't
Yeah,
because I don't have like the best balance, but I found balance in rollerblading, and I
yeah,
only got rollerblades again, and it was like
good,
you were free, right? These are just like oh,
yeah,
I remember this. This is it.
yeah. Stoke, feeling the stoke. Yeah, I think it's so important too. It's like when you're a creative, like having some sort of a physical outlet like that is almost essential to I don't know. It just like a lot of times if I have creative block, I'm just like, well, I just need to go skating. So I'll go skating for like I'll be gone for an hour and then come back, and it's like the world is a different place and my mind is a different place. I'm like, oh, like 15 minutes into the skate, and I'm like, I've got ideas popping, and so it's all, yeah, it's all part of the creative experience.
What do you think? Where do you think the horror part came into play for you?
That's a really good question. So I remember being a little kid, and on on TV when I was watching cartoons in the afternoon when I'd come home from school, there'd always be these. like advertisements for these midnight movies that were on that channel. It was like it was like a Fox channel, but they had like Frankenstein and Dracula movies, like the black and white on like late at night or something. And there was always this dude with this like black cloak hood that was talking about it. Oh my gosh, it was one of those things that as a little kid I was both like mesmerized and mystified and also a little bit like scared, like, oh my gosh, should I be seeing this? Like this is, and it was just so cool. And then I remember very distinctively being in a department store called Belmont's with my mom, and I was probably in kindergarten. A lot of cool stuff happened creatively in kindergarten, and I remember turning this aisle into like the action figure section and seeing a Frankenstein figure, a 3 3/4 inch Frankenstein figure, just sitting on a peg, like just looking at me. It was like waiting for me, and it was just like again the packaging art was just this giant black and white picture of Frankenstein. It was like there was no question. I was leaving with that Frankenstein action figure that day, and then collected them all. And I think that, and so those things just like the weird creatures in Star Wars, like the Cantina and the entire Star Wars universe, growing up with that and all the figures, like it just, I loved monsters. I loved creative things. And there's a lot of like psychology there with monsters also, like kind of helps you deal with, like, they're good metaphors. Like sometimes the reality of things, sometimes it's easier to watch like a horror movie, like a Halloween movie, than watch a unsettling murder documentary. You know what I'm saying? It's like it kind of gives you this weird metaphorical way of dealing with evil in the world, you know?
I love that you mentioned the psychology side because I'm actually in school for psychology. So I have like
Oh,
a
awesome.
or get my bachelor's.
Oh,
That's
right on. Congrats.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's totally part of what I think fascinates me about both horror and true crime is the thinking behind it, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah. The
talk
whole,
about that way.
are you more on the Freud side or the more on the Jung side? Or just, is it everybody just has a balance of both in
I
your
think
field?
balance. I think there's a balance. I do see a lot of like in mind, I guess, like went into thinking of Freud in a way of like, God, did you just have like mommy issues, bro? Like, but
Yeah.
so, but then there's always the valid points of like where you come from does affect you, and absolutely the environment that you're like part of
Yeah.
and can. But I just feel like he was so like mommy issues, and maybe that's like the feminist like part of me that I don't really want to you can't even
Yeah.
use that word anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Off of
I'm always really intrigued by Jungian psychology. I know just enough to be dangerous, but the whole concept of the shadow and integrating that, and like those parts of you that you stuff down, and that if you don't integrate them, they turn gnarly. They turn into something else, And so in
Mhm.
integrating them into it, just it's super, and like the whole like subconscious and I don't know. And then I read some what's the guy's name? The man with 1,000, Joseph Campbell, and the whole concept of, what's he call it, the collective unconscious,
Mhm.
where these archetypes, that stuff freaking fascinates me, man. I love that. You know?
It, it it plays I think more into the way that we look at the world now than more on the Freud side. Like I think we kind of do see that. Like I think shadow work is a really big thing for people now.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
becoming more aware. If you're into psychology, like it's one of the first things I feel like that you like fall into is like, okay, well, where do I fall into this? Like what parts of this are, and how am I going to be biased if I don't understand where I am to begin with? Like I can't view these things, with an open mind if I'm only viewing them through my lens, kind of
yeah,
ideally.
yeah, yeah.
So like that takes me back though to art, right? And
Mhm.
kind of saying like you have to have these like outlets for those different parts of your personality. I think
Uh-huh.
that does play out in art. Like when you draw a picture, you
Yeah,
reflecting like what's inside of you, or like maybe
yeah,
part of you that you don't understand, or kind of yeah. How did you
yeah.
find your way to like doing illustrations? You're in this book, right?
Yeah, I got a couple in there. That's a fun book. I was pleased to see the final product there. So in terms of just, I just always drew monsters. I always, and especially when I worked a day job. Oh my gosh, you put me in a meeting to suffer, dude. I'm gonna come out of that meeting with some dope monster drawings and a lot of them. I'm gonna get in trouble for it later.
Yeah,
But but it's like,
sketched.
yeah, it's like it's almost like how I listen. Like I can't, like what you're saying is so boring. Like in order for me in order for me to care and for order for me to process, like I just have to draw, a chupacabra right now, on my notes, so but yeah, I was always just drawing, and then tying it back to skateboarding. Some friends that I used to skate with connected me with Creature Skateboards, and Creature Skateboards is the quintessential skateboard brand for having monsters and stuff like that on their skate decks. And yeah, monsters have just always been fun in any context for me.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah,
I think you talking about, drawing during, I think it's cool because there's like a new um way of learning and that they're looking at now where
yeah,
there are people that actively like sit and knit through class instead of
yeah.
notes, because what they're doing is they're proving
Uh-huh.
your brain basically, like especially with ADHD, like it makes like a wormhole right to another part of your brain.
Yeah,
There you're connecting your learning part of your brain, at that same time to whatever it is you're doing. So you could,
yeah.
one could argue that you're taking in that information better because you are drawing.
I 100% would argue that. Like even when I'm working on art here at home, I'm just sitting on my couch. I just had a crazy documentary on. Like I like to have something playing in the background, but I think that like drawing in a situation like that, like a meeting or knitting or whatever it is, it's like it focuses your attention on one thing and keeps that part of your brain that wants to go all over the place and dance all over the place, which it likes to do when you're bored with whatever it is they're talking about. It's just, it focuses one part of my brain and allows something open in order to take in what people are saying around me. So
Neurotypical people sometimes, if that is even actually a thing, don't,
yeah.
because they're just like, well, I can't focus on two things at once, and they're just like, well, I have to.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really cool. No,
yeah. I
I
think
agree. I thought there was some really cool little things in it. I like hold it up so that people can see.
yeah,
Um, and hopefully I'll get to talk to the author Ridley. That'd be cool.
yeah.
And I thought that was a clever name, the Ridley
I
Moore.
thought so too. And by the way, one of the artists, I think it's Mitch O'Connell. Is he one
Uh-huh.
of the main artists? I love his work. He is one of the main artists featured. Yeah, Mitch O'Connell. He's one of the main artists featured in that, and just he's a huge inspiration to me. I just got to give a shout out to that guy because I look at his posters a lot for inspiration, and just to see how he does things. He has a beautiful sense of line and composition and color palettes and everything. So, and I noticed that he was one of the predominant artists in that. So I was really stoked to see that.
I think Indiana has some amazing horror artists like that people are not even aware of, like Kevin Keogh. Kevin does some of the posters at the drive-in and different things, and he did recently a poster for us for Nuvo for an event we did together, horror themed Valentine event.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool to see that, and I think like Indiana, we got that special like Sammy Terry, like,
Uh
you know
huh.
so it kind of, all that really plays into your childhood and like a nostalgic feeling. And I think there's like a place in there you kind of want to just live in there, like in that art. So
Oh
I
yeah.
can add to that because I, as a horror kid, like my last name really is Gore. I didn't make
I
that
was
up,
going to ask you that. That's awesome. Great. Good for you.
right? Because I got a cool last name, but like I didn't make it up. I swear, it was my dad's.
I
Um,
love it.
but it was cool, right? Because you get to live in that little horror
Yeah.
world, talk to
Yeah,
people about cool things. So
absolutely. And I think it's funny because a lot of times I'll talk to clients or people, and they'll be like, "Oh, where are you out of?" Expecting me to say Los Angeles or San Diego or something like that. I'm like, Indiana. They're like, wait, what? But I
Yeah.
think that where you're at, like right now, it's, as you know, I don't know how miserable it is there in Indianapolis, but it's like 17 degrees out. It's cold. We had the ice storm the other night. Like, and all of that stuff plays into the creative process also, it's,
Get stuck inside. You got to draw or, make art.
yeah. And dude, I think that's why creatives like thrived so much during COVID.
Yeah.
Like all these creatives were like, oh, thank God, I don't have to leave my home. All these weirdo creative introverts were like, I don't have to leave my home. Like I can make cool stuff. Like,
Start writing again or
yeah, it
drawing.
was like a creative renaissance for a lot. I mean, it sucked for obvious, a lot of reasons, but I mean, I quit my day job in the middle of COVID. Like there was no choice. Like I had to get out of there. So I had to move on. And that little space while we were all at home convinced me enough, like, not going back to this. I gotta move forward. So
Where, yeah.
yeah.
It's
So,
a change because I also have not went back into like I returned to working was you know work from home situation because I just felt like I never wanted to do that again. I was like, I don't, this like corporate design that they've come up with and this like 5 day, sometimes 6, sometimes 7 day work week. And like, as things cost more, it becomes, like you have to, but
yeah.
decided like, I'm just going to like ride on the creativity and the things that make me happy. And even if that only gets exactly what I need to survive,
Yeah.
feel happier, like overall, just
Yeah.
make art or to write or to create things, or talk to people that are creative. So that's kind of cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that a lot of creatives probably undermine their own capacity to be successful and to make money off their art. Like we are naturally, like, sorry to say it, but we are naturally kind of a self-loathing, like, you know what I'm saying? We
Yeah,
just, oh my gosh, like we're just all starved for validation, That's like, but I think that like
yeah,
there's a lot of opportunities for a lot of different ways to make money off your whatever your creative jam is. Maybe it's not gonna be your sole gig, but there's still a lot of opportunity. I think it's still, you just have to be open to, a lot, you just have to be open to the potentials, and start to look for them, and start to look for the needs, and ask for and see what people are looking for, asking for, and seeing what you do, and seeing where all those things connect. And you know
yeah. It really does become kind of therapy because you have to learn to know your worth in a situation,
oh my gosh, yes.
life. And
Yeah.
well, art's not, you can't make money off that. It's not a real job. Like all those things that people
Oh
say
yeah.
in the corporate design because they want
Yeah.
to conform, but they
Yeah.
realize that's not really, you got to be your own advocate, right? And then you can live from.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also, and this would be a piece of advice for any artists or creatives or who are looking to make a living off their art, or even just look to make money off their art. One thing, like one of the best things you can do, is to do the things that other artists aren't willing to do. Like it's no fun um, doing research and making sure that all of your um, money is taken care of, and all of, what I'm saying, and following up with clients, and looking for clients, and spending time on phone calls with clients, billing, invoicing, all those things. But those are the things that most artists just don't want to do. We just naturally want to make cool stuff, and but I think that if for the serious creative who wants to make money off of their art, being willing to do the things that other artists aren't willing to do will put you ahead of, put you ahead of the competition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate hearing that advice too. I know I've kept you longer than I said I would, so I don't want
All
to.
good. This is fun.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you taking the time to like, talk. And I think the only
Absolutely.
cover that I had written down was asking you what advice that you've received in your career that you've like carried with you.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's really, really, really good question. So much. Like I've had several key people that have been mentors to me. Like the journey out of the corporate world was a long one. It was a long one, and my buddy Steve said to me, and Steve's a unique guy in that he's a hardcore creative, but he's a businessman, and so he understands how it all works, much more so than I do. But he kind of helped me see, okay, this is where you're at. He was like, you're standing on one ladder right now, Tim. Like you've got your day job, um, and your day job is providing, even though it's not ideal, it's providing a cushion. It's keeping the dream alive because you're not stressing your dream out. So so people should not feel bad about having a day job. Like if you want to do art full time eventually, you write full time eventually, great. It's not bad to have a day job for the time being, because the minute you jump from day job to creative, like that suddenly puts a lot of pressure on the creative to be creative. And in my experience, I am most creative when I'm the most relaxed and enjoying life and chill and like, you know what I'm saying? But the minute you're in survival mode, that sucks. That's going to shut down. That's going to shut down the creative neural pathways. So don't feel bad about having a day job. Use it to the best of your ability. Do a good job, and use that to stabilize your dream that you eventually want to jump to. Because he was like, you're on one ladder. There's another ladder, and you don't want to jump to the other ladder until that one's built up high enough that you can safely, or at least wisely, make a jump. There's always risk. There's always risk no matter what you're doing in life. There's risk if you have a day job. You could get fired, or your department could get cleaned out or whatever. So there's always risk in things, but balancing that out. And I would say just love what you do. And I would say be consistent. Here's another one. Is be reliable. If you say that you're going to have something for a client by tomorrow, have it for them by tomorrow. Because the number one thing I hear complaints about creatives, particularly artists, they're like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. They'll say like, yeah, used to work with this artist, but they were really flaky. Like they always use that word flaky. Like, and we are. But I think follow through and being very, taking yourself seriously, being professional, and and just doing good work and being reliable. What do they say? Like clients will come back to you if they know you, they like you, and they trust you. And so make sure they know you, and make sure they like you, make sure they trust you, do a good job, and probably keep coming back.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's important to, I think that's a great point that you would make, because I know on the photography side of things, like
Mm-hmm.
if people want something back in a certain amount of time, and they want their pictures the next day, but it's not,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you have to meet that, like that expectation, and set the expectation from the beginning. Like, this is going to take me 3 weeks to edit these and get these back to you.
Yes.
There's no like question. That's how long it's going to be. And then if you get it faster, great. But that 3 week mark, you better have the product to deliver, because people do look at creatives often as like not organized or not serious. And
Yeah.
yeah, you have to show your integrity
Mm-hmm.
by meeting your deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah, and think about it in the social media age. Like, if you do a good job for somebody, they'll probably tell a couple people. But if you do a crappy job for somebody, they're gonna tell the entire world. Like, so it's like, oh my gosh, stakes are high. So do a good job, follow through, be professional.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so much. I really appreciate you taking the
yeah,
talk with
my,
me.
yeah. My pleasure, Amanda. It was good talking to you.
Hey, if you end up having some like event that is gonna happen, or you want to promote like the skateboarders doing the any of that, just let us know because we'll totally support that. Like we're
Okay, cool. Next month on the 2nd and 3rd, I think it is, of March, I'm going to be at the Indiana Toy and Comic Expo, and that's over by Indianapolis, or just outside of Indy, I think. So I will be there on the 2nd and 3rd. It'll be a cool show. It's always a cool show.
thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
you want to promote any of your stuff for sure.
All right. Appreciate you, Amanda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
All right. You too. Have a good day.